Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Amy.
Our project is called Mind, Body, and Soul, the Nature of Well-Being, and this podcast is just one small piece of the overall project. We are making a documentary that follows our hike on the Continental Divide Trail that will explore how spending time in nature affects a person's mental, physical, and spiritual well-being.
We are guinea pigs in a sense because we will be documenting our own experiences and recording changes that we find. Along the way, we are interviewing people about their experiences in nature to see how they have been affected.
Much of the benefits that come from being in nature are subjective, and therefore hard to measure in a quantifiable way. That's why we have turned to recording stories as a way to distribute this knowledge. Since the beginning of human culture, we have compressed valuable information into stories, and that's how we have shared wisdom throughout the generations.
We hope that the stories we gathered during this project will help spread some of the wisdom that can be found in the wilderness. Episode 13, an interview with Lucas Mulvaugh, who's played a significant role in our personal journeys and continues to be a guiding light for many. He's not just an expert in his field, but someone who walks the walk. As a spiritual guide and facilitator of ceremonial sweat lodges, Lucas helps people connect with their deeper selves, their communities, and the natural world. This episode is just a very short introduction, and he will be back on other episodes. If you're interested in learning more about Lucas's work or sweat lodges, please go to www.thesacredwalkinitiative.com.
Okay. My name is Lucas Mulvaugh. I am the executive director of a nonprofit called the Sacred Walk Initiative. And basically what we focus on is helping people to connect with their sacred purpose on the earth. And we do that through a variation of ways, but primarily focusing on gathering foundational strength from the earth and using that to find what your purpose is and what God wants you to do on the planet.
All right. I got a list of stuff written down here. So how did you meet Amy and I? I guess Amy was first.
Amy came to a sweat that I ran. I think Ben Polite invited her to come, and so after that initial sweat, we just started to get to know each other.
And then, so like what kind of time period was that, and then how much later did you meet me?
When was that? Last summer? Last fall?
I think so.
I think
That was my first sweat, yeah.
Right.
It's like a year and a half ago.
Yes. Yeah, you came to sweat probably a year and a half ago. And then Alex, you came, I think it was in August or September, right? Or was it November?
Yeah, I want to say November.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the whole process has probably been a year and a half, I think.
Okay. When you first meet somebody, are you able to kind of see what's going on with them right away, or does it take some time to kind of get to know them and understand what's happening?
Usually when I first meet somebody, I can sort of get an understanding of how they're feeling in their heart. But I always like to choose to engage with people directly, so I don't make any assumptions about what they may or may not be dealing with, because I consider that sort of a violation of their free will. And so if I feel somebody may be struggling or need assistance, I will offer that, but it will always come on the foundation of getting to know them as a person and asking them sort of what's going on. So.
Okay. So what were your first impressions of us?
First impression of Amy, which also came through her prayers, and that's also part of what, if someone comes into sweat, I really listen to what they're saying. And one of the things we really ask people to do is, if they need help, is to not be afraid to ask for help from Creator. And so when someone comes into the sweat for the first time, I really choose to listen to what they're saying. And then that helps inform me of struggles they may be having or just where they're at in their consciousness and in their life. From when I first met Amy in that first sweat, I remember it being a pretty powerful ceremony. There was probably almost 25 people in there. I remember it impacting you pretty dramatically, and it really seemed like you were feeling in that space. From that experience, I could tell that you were carrying some pretty deep levels of trauma. And you even mentioned it, I recall, in the sweat, of just how much you have carried throughout your life. And so yeah, I always sort of held that in my heart. I think I did put it out to you guys about 6 months ago. You know, if you want any assistance, I can provide you with assistance on that sort of healing journey. And but these kind of things take time. As we've talked about in there, you can't get rid of 25 years worth of stuff in 2 weeks. And it doesn't quite take as much time, but usually some of these processes for people will take a couple years to fully unfold and find that sort of centered place or whole place. So just from that first ceremony, I had a pretty deep understanding that you were carrying some pretty really hard stuff that was very real. And Alex, just after having conversations with you and you coming in your first set, you seemed like you were sort of opening your eyes, and by that also opening doors to understanding the spirit world and the earth in a deeper way, with a little bit of cautiousness, a real desire to sort of want to see some tangible proof, sort of like with the science mind of just wanting to have it to be there present for you, but also with a complete openness and willingness to learn about the various ways that you can connect with the earth and connect with the spirit world.
Okay. So how have you been helping us prepare for this hike?
Basically by creating a simple program that both of you can use on a day-to-day basis that will help to anchor you in your free will and also create deeper connections to the earth. And when creating deeper connections to the earth, it's basically just doing simple exercises that are offering gratitude and thanks to the earth, and creating relationship with the earth and with the spirits that work with the earth, or just all of the animals, all the insects, all of the birds. Foundationally, it's sort of on the principle of reciprocity, that if you ask for something, you should offer something back, and understanding what that means when you're asking for. Specifically, we've been talking about purification, and understanding that as you go through trauma in your life and various pains and sufferings, that those will build up on your energetic body over time. And the earth is one of the best tools to actually purify yourself of those traumas, to move into a place of wholeness and balance. And so we've basically been talking about simple ways that you both can do that on a consistent level, day-to-day level, which I know with how busy you've been, it's been happening a little bit, but as you get out there on the trail, there'll be a pretty easy structure to follow on the day-to-day that you'll be able to use, with a clear understanding of actually what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I'm looking forward to the most, is just to have the time to actually think.
Right.
And just to kind of be in this stuff and not be so distracted all the time.
Yeah, it's going to be super empowering and super enlightening, I think. And you guys got that message sort of that the next day after that sweat with the beetles and with the worms, just that power is there, and it'll show itself to you if you form that relationship. So,
are you comfortable with talking about our last sweat? Kind of like the state that we were in when we got there and what happened during it?
Sure. Both of you were pretty stressed out. Amy was sort of having a bit of a breakdown, which was manifesting itself in the form of pretty severe anxiety and panic. Wasn't feeling listened to or heard, and just seemed to be pretty energetically overloaded. Alex, you sort of didn't really seem like you knew what to do, but you guys made it to the sweat, which I consider to be pretty honorable because a lot of people would have backed out. So with you making it there, I chose to take Amy into the lodge before we had brought any stones in, just to try to help calm her down and get her into her breath, which she was able to do after about 15 minutes. She said she wanted to go through the ceremony. There was only 5 of us present, so we went through, so we were all able to go in there, and we kept it pretty simple, just in terms of focusing on shedding what needed to be shed at that particular time, also finding pathways to come together, specifically for connecting to the earth, and also finding strength in what needed to be undertaken for the journey ahead, which was, was a 5-month hike. And through that process, both of you sort of were able to stabilize, ground, and come to some inner understanding on the ways that you wanted to go forward. So overall, it was a situation where there seemed to be a crisis, or there was a crisis, but through using the ceremony and by praying, both of you were able to sort of make it through that crisis. And from my understanding, there hasn't been a crisis since, right? So the prayers that you guys made in that ceremony worked. And it sort of helped to create a foundation, rather than a foundation of chaos, of where everything was whirling around you and you felt completely overwhelmed. It's been one where, yes, it's stressful, but we can get through this. We're getting through it. And now you're ready to go.
Through that experience, did you see anything in particular that either one of us needs to be working on?
Following up with Amy after the ceremony, and the next day, one of the consistent things that she said was that she didn't feel anything. And so I started to ask her more about what that, where that come from, just could she describe that feeling anymore? And she notably said it's something that I developed some years back, basically to protect myself due to all of the trauma that I've experienced. And so I engaged with her a little bit more deeply in discussion on that day, and then you guys had planned to go out in nature and just do nothing, just get in contact with the earth. And I sort of did some prayers around what was potentially going on. And then we talked the next day after you had come back, when you'd had the beetle and the worm experience, which the beetle is representative of resurrection, and the worm was digging up old stuff and turning it back into new, which I thought was pretty fitting. So we got into the concept of what's called a soul retrieval and soul fragmentation and soul loss, which basically is a condition that can arise specifically when young children are exposed to and involved in deep levels of trauma. And so Amy and I had a conversation about what that looked like, what soul loss was, what soul fragmentation was, what a soul retrieval process is, and there's specific symptoms, signs, behaviors, patterns, and we talked about those things, and she really resonated that we were on to something. And part of what has to happen in a soul retrieval process is the person that is going through that process has to be fully invested in understanding what it is, and that this is what their consciousness needs at that time. And everything we talked about, she really resonated with. And so we basically came to the determination that due to the intense levels of trauma that she had experienced in childhood, that she had this soul fragmentation, which was thereby causing various issues in her life, but at this particular point had led to this state of being of where she's not able to feel any sort of heart emotion in her body in any way.
Did you see anything that I need to work on?
Yes. Is that your phone? Okay.
Yeah, I just heard that in my ear.
Trusting, allowing the process to unfold as it is supposed to unfold, not being too focused on the end goal, and allowing the actual experience to inform what the end goal should be. Letting go and trying to find the happy balance between the digital and the actual experiential / spiritual experience. We talked specifically about, because I didn't realize you guys were going out there for 5 months, and then when I found it out, I was like, whoa, it's a really long time. And so we talked about having that not necessarily be like a fundamental finish of how this should go, but rather it should be an experience and a journey that you both undertake, and you may be told by God or Mother Earth, like, you don't have to be out here anymore. You guys have done what you've needed to do and come for. But being able to hear that and listen and really just open yourself up to that communication with the natural world and with God. Sorry, I'm starting to shiver.
Yeah. So we'll do the last one then. Do you think we're ready?
I do. We did another one-on-one ceremony today that was just really focused on grounding, setting the stage for the unfoldment of this trip and the unfoldment of Amy's soul retrieval and the unfoldment of this growth that Alex will be going on, or you will be going on. And in comparison to where you were at in a week, there's been a noticeable change just in speaking with you, engaging with you. And I do think that you're ready, and I'm really looking forward to hear how this process goes. And I just encourage you to hold tight even when there's hard times, because there will be adversity, and that's part of the learning and part of the growth.
All right. Well, that's promising.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm really proud of you guys. You're doing awesome. It's quite a noble venture. So keep it up.
We'll do our best.
We'll do it.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
So how much of this do you do on the trail? A lot?
Probably won't be interviewing people too much out there.
No, like filming.
A lot of filming.
A lot of filming?
Yeah, like every day. And we're going to be carrying so much camera gear. Got to film a lot just to make it worth it. But it's a big part of the reason why I'm out there. I just enjoy doing it. It's kind of a fun activity to kind of keep you busy out there too.
Sure.
Mostly what I enjoy is like the time lapses and landscape photography and stuff like that.
If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, where you'll find a lot of videos that have similar themes.